Marianela is a wonderful person,
She is.
and she's a real person. She's a person you're in the room with, you can have a conversation with about life. We've become friends. We know what we like and what we want to do and what we don't like. Walking through her exhibit, post-pandemic exhibit, and saw all her beautiful work. But then the altar piece is the one that where I really spent so much time in front of that piece and really got completely taken aback by it and decided on the spot to write to Marianela. We've started emailing each other and became pen friends, so to speak. We never met for maybe another year.
Uh-huh.
And then at some point during those many emails, I thought of suggesting a collaboration based on the
Nice.
fact that I loved her work so much and that she paints on paper and speakers are also made out of paper. And so
Mm-hmm.
I thought if I suggest to her to try to paint on a speaker, even if the surface is uneven, but it's the same material,
Mm-hmm.
that would allow for us to have a dialogue between sound and image. Because,
Mm-hmm.
the obvious choice, and I've done this for other artists, is to create sound design that is an accompaniment to um, whatever art they are displaying. And
Right.
I've done things like that with, for many artists that I've collaborated with. But to have something where the painting itself becomes the origin of the sound, it creates a much more profound connection. For example, Marianela loves to paint cats in a lot of details of
Very
cats.
true. Yeah.
I have a lot of these sounds that are specific to the cat that's in the painting. So in the Tree of Life trilogy piece, where there's a piece about birth, a piece about life, and a piece about death, you can hear the cat in the various stages of life. You can
Mm-hmm.
in the early part, you can hear the cat drinking milk or water, but you can hear the cat drinking it's not just the meowing. It's the different stages, and the same is for the person. You can hear the high pitched, fast paced heartbeat of a baby in the first one, the steady heartbeat of an adult in the middle one,
Mm-hmm.
and then the belabored, slow heartbeat and breath of the person dying in the last
Mm-hmm.
one. All of the sounds paint a picture of what Marianela already painted in her beautiful pieces of art. So you can really get lost in listening to the sounds and looking at the details and making the connection, drawing the connections between those two is there. It's available, and it's for you to let go and be in this beautiful voyage. Marianela continued to paint these paintings while I continue to work on the sound. So
Okay.
we're working. I live in New York. She lives in San Diego. So we were
Sure.
working parallel on a parallel time frame. And every time she had a new piece, she would send it to me. And one
Okay.
time in that year, more or less, of span of work, we actually met in California because I was there for something else. And she brought one of the pieces to me, to my hotel, so I could actually see it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Tree of Life cubes with the speaker in it, which gave me more inspiration. But yeah,
Okay.
the very first thing, I actually have the prototype in the back there on my shelf. I have a prototype of the very first small speaker that she sent me, which was
Mm.
just to show what it looked like. This was a prototype
Oh, I
uh,
see. Yes.
that she sent me. It's a broken speaker, but she was
Uh-huh.
just
Uh-huh.
experimenting. But this is how it started. I looked at that, and it was the inspiration. This was not to be part of the exhibit, and it isn't part of the
Sure.
exhibit. But from there, then she sent me. I told her what speaker to paint on because I wanted a certain speaker to recreate a certain um, range of frequencies. She did the first painting, which was the one with the original song of mankind, which is a melody that has been found written on a stone somewhere, but has never been heard. I've worked off of that melody and created a piece with that. But I also was trying things that would make the speaker move in a physical way. And to do that, you need to have a lot of low frequency, which can be quite loud, but it actually makes the speaker vibrate. So we wanted to create the theme, the fil rouge of the exhibit is the heart and the palpitations from the heart, hence the title. So I wanted to create that movement with the speaker. But to do that on every one of the pieces that have sound would obviously been limiting, and so I decided to make it the central theme of the Tree of Life trilogy pieces, but to not have it on the others. But I still was interested in the physicality of breathing life into an image, of breathing movement into an otherwise static object. And so that's what I did with the Ouroboros piece. Marianela painted the snake, and I then put sand. We, experimented with a lot of materials. We used a kind of ceramic powder. And then we excite the speaker by sending some very low frequencies that have different, change over time. With these frequencies, I can make the sound move and create images and shapes and even defy gravity, because the sound walks uphill on the surface of the speaker. Yeah, it's fascinating because it's literally defying gravity. It's literally going up, up. And you have to find the exact relationship between frequency and volume. And that relationship changes all the time. And the sound can be pretty loud, which is why I decided not to have it on all the time, but to have the visitor of the museum activate the sound. So when you're in front of that piece, there's a button. And the amazing thing is that unless you press that button for more than 15 minutes, you will never see the same form twice. And in fact, even after that, you will never see the same form twice. The frequency composition that I sound designed for that is 15 minutes long. But even if you had the patience to look at it for 15 minutes, the physicality of the events that are taking place make it so the sound will never create the same image twice. But you will see fractal images, you will see things moving uphill on the walls of the speaker, you will see the sound simply bouncing off, you will see the sound creating circles. It's really beautiful, and it is for the curious mind. So always remind myself when I work in music not to lose the forest for the trees.
Right.
So you got to look at the whole image, and to look at the whole image, in case in point, there's the little cat or the little bird in this one painting, but then the painting is part of a trilogy. And then that trilogy is part of a room with 12 paintings, 6 of which have sound. And so all of this needs to, collaborate in some way. And so all the paintings are synchronized. I made it so that every morning when it starts, they all start on the same timeline, so that they're always synchronized. When you enter in this room, you're listening to a soundtrack that never repeats in the same way, but obviously does repeat because it can't be self-generating. It is connected so that all the different pieces talk to each other. So if you're standing in front of the Tree of Life piece and you wait long enough, and you in that case, I believe it's 7.5 minutes.
Okay.
If you wait for 7.5 minutes, you will hear the whole passage of from birth to life to death. But in the meantime, the bird sounds from the hope piece and the war sounds from the war piece are doing something else. They're kind of in the corners of the room, creating an ambience that the Tree of Life works within.
If you immerse yourself in it, then you get a lot out of it.
Absolutely. You just have to give it time. You have to, like with everything, if you observe long enough, you'll start to be able to peel the layers away.
I felt like a sense of genuine collaboration, listening to your sound looking at the paintings at the same time. It was readily apparent to me that it was so, I would say, pretty seamless as to the way the two interacted.
We need to thank the San Diego Museum of Art and the curator, Anita Feldman, believing in us and giving us this show and really allowing this collaboration to be seen and be known. And I'm very grateful for that. I know Marianela is as well. And I know that the San Diego Museum of Art is proposing this to other museums.
Good.
Possibly a touring show. We would very much love for it to be in Mexico because obviously that's where Marianela is from. And I personally, egoistically, maybe would love for it to be in New York at one point.
I think would be a natural for New York.
So exactly, if we can bring it to those two cities, I will be very satisfied. But anywhere any museum would like to show this work, we're very grateful and we hope it will happen.
All of her exhibitions actually have been special, but there was even something that added another dimension, and of course it was, I think, the collaboration.
Dali is one of my favorite painters, and I can see a little bit of Dali in Marianela's work.
For sure.
Of course, I can also see the huge Mexican tradition that Marianela is drawing upon and coming from. But all of those things are intertwined in her work. And I love that. I love surrealism. I love all of that currents. It's like you're looking at all of those things talking together through the lens of Mexican culture.